Hi, and welcome back to Ninox Learning. I'm Andy Marks. I'm a Ninox trainer and programmer. And in this class, we're going to be looking at choice fields. Choice fields play a very important role in database application design in that they simplify data entry, creating a user experience that's more streamlined and more intuitive. And at the same time, they standardize data entry. Standardization is critically important in any database application because standardized or normalized data allows us to get higher quality information. It allows us to get it faster and in a more relevant presentation. So choice fields are really powerful because they help the user, they improve the quality of the application, and they improve the results, the information and business intelligence that the application can deliver to us. So let's go ahead and get started. I've created a blank database and a new table called choice fields. Now, you can follow along at home as you watch this video and hit pause periodically if you want to go back and try a few things and experiment with some of the things that we're going to be talking about and presenting in this class. Let's go into the choice fields table, which is a blank table that I configured just before the class began. And let's go into our table management window. Now there are three choice fields that we're going to focus on today. They are the YesNo field, the choice field, and finally the multiple choice field. Now, the choice and multiple choice fields allow us to present the user with a list of predetermined options that they can use to effectively answer a question. For choice fields, they can select one of the presented answers, and in multiple choice fields, they can select one, many, or all of the options presented. The YesNo field is a special kind of choice field. It is what we call a binomial. There are only two options, yes or no, true or false, on or off, or in technological language, a 1 or a 0. Yes/no fields do not allow the end user or the Ninox Application Manager to define the options that can answer the question. The question must be posed in a yes/no, on/off, or binomial fashion, and checking the box or clicking the field indicates yes or acceptance. Leaving it blank or not clicking it at all indicates a negative or a refused acceptance. So the important thing to know about these three choice fields is the choice and multiple choice allow the administrator to determine the available options. The yes/no field is a binomial. The only available answer is a yes or a no. So let's see how this works at the user level on the form. Now, like other smart fields in Ninox, and we just saw in the previous video, smart fields associated with date and time, this smart field is a prompted field. And remember, this is a yes/no or a binomial field. So the only available answers are yes or no. The label or the name of this field is effectively the question that is being asked. So for example, let's say we want to use this yes/no field as a toggle switch, an on/off switch that users can check or uncheck, click or unclick to display or hide other fields on the form. So the question that we may ask, or the field name as it were, might be display detail fields. And the answer, obviously, is yes or no. Leaving the field blank or empty, which is effectively a null response, is treated as a no or negative response. There's nothing wrong with leaving a binomial field blank or null, but again, while you have three choices of response, Responses are only interpreted one of two ways, yes or no, and the empty or null response, or no response at all, will be interpreted by Ninox as a no. Now, in terms of best practices in user interface design, we have a number of options for how we display this choice field, this yes/no field, but the most common would be the checkbox, the switch, or the slider. Let's look at all three. And again, feel free to follow along on your own computer and get your own experience utilizing these special kinds of fields in the user interface. I'm going to use my Edit Fields option from the toolbox to go back to the Table Management window, and I'm going to create two more yes/no fields in the model. This one will be, the question being asked is this an active employee or someone who's retired from the company? Let's make that a switch. And then this question will be, let's do it this way. Offer credit terms to new customer. This one we're going to set up as a slider. Now let's look at the three options we have for presentation of these yes/no fields. Our first yes/no field, and I'm going to turn off the administrative mode. The first yes/no field is this one over here. Display detail fields. We see this as a checkbox which can be toggled on or off. When the check mark appears in blue, that is effectively a yes or a true response. Yes, I would like to display the other detail fields that are available. Leaving it blank is no, I do not want to see these fields. Here we see the same checkbox data element or object with a different presentation. This is the switch. Yes, no. Now, the difference here is it's a little more intuitive on the way you answer the question. The checkbox requires the user to know what happens when this box is checked. This, and again, if we add the question mark, I'll go back into administrative mode. If we were to actually add the question mark to the field label, people could see that this is a question being asked. Users could see this is a question being asked. And the obvious responses are yes and no. The difference between the switch versus all the other options in the yes/no field is the switch displays all of the available choices. Now this will become more critical in some of the other choice fields because there's only two options here in the yes/no. Finally, we have the slider. The slider presents the answer, if you will, to the question on the right of the question. When the slider is in the gray or left side position, that is the equivalent of a no or a false response. Again, we might want to phrase this as a question. Are we going to offer credit terms to the new customer? And if we are, we're going to use the slider, click on it, activate it, which is indicated by the green background, and we now see the button is on the right side of the slide. This is on, this is off. This is yes, we are going to offer credit terms, or no, we are not. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. And I'm going to go ahead and just move this over because I want my checkbox and my slider to be next to each other because they are effectively the opposites of each other. The checkbox presents the answer field to the left of the question. The slider presents it to the right. Also, checkbox tends to be more of a yes/no type of situation, where sliders generally are used more for the on-off situation. And finally, the switch, as we know from before, allows the user the most intuitive or straightforward user interface experience. Let's look at our next choice field by going back into the table management window. I'm going to delete those 2 extra yes/no fields that we created. And I now want to create a couple of choice fields. In fact, I'm going to create 2 more. Let's name the first choice field type of service and have that be a combo box. Select OK. Let's have the second choice field be type of company and let that be a radio button. And again, select OK. And finally, the third choice field, let's make it a switch, and let's name that field company current status. Finally, let's hit OK. Now, as I said, the choice field, and as we'll see in a moment, the multiple choice field, allow us as the system administrator to define the options that are effectively the answer to the question that the field is asking. The yes/no field, which we saw a moment ago, was binomial. Only 2 answers, always only 2 answers, and the answers are always yes or no. However, in the choice field, and we'll soon see in the multiple choice field, we could have a virtually unlimited number of answers. Let's see how we set those answers up. Let's go to the type of service field, the first choice field. The question we are effectively asking is, what type of service does this particular company, the company represented in this record in the database, in the table, what type of service do they provide? Identify the plus add value button, the dark gray button, at the bottom of the choice values field that occupies the right half of the choice setup window. Click on add value and add the value electrician. We might want to give a graphic indicator or identify an icon that goes with this option. So click on the icon field, and because this is an electrician, let's go ahead and select the light bulb. And then finally, and optionally, we may want this particular choice to be associated with a color, and I'll go ahead and say red. Let's click OK. Now note that Ninox has assigned this choice option, this value, the number 1. This is the first value we have entered, and as we have seen with record indicators, every option or choice value in the choice and multiple choice field will be assigned a number sequentially by Ninox. If we were to add a value, and we're going to delete this one, we added a value, we subsequently delete it. Note that this was choice value number 2. Choice 2 is gone. The next one we add will be choice 3. It does not matter what the number is that Ninox associates with each of our choice values. And as we'll see in a moment, they don't need to present it. The choice values do not need to be presented in sequential order. This is not something the user can change. It is something assigned by Ninox. So just be aware that each one will have a number. The numbers will not necessarily be in sequence. And if you've deleted values, the numbers may not even be a complete sequential list. Let's add to the list below electrician, plumber, and optionally give it an icon or a color if you like. I'll go ahead and give this one the color green. Let's add landscape service. And maybe for this one we should have a tree. Let's make this one, I don't know, blue. And then finally, let's have a roofer. We will give this a dark gray, and I guess the icon could be a house with a roof. Now, a couple of things to note. Again, we are missing item number 2. That's not a problem. Note that for light colored backgrounds, Ninox will automatically assign black as the color of the font that appears. For dark backgrounds, the color assigned will be white. This really doesn't matter unless you are using colors within your user interface design to mean certain things. For example, if someone were to look at this list, and by virtue of the design of your software that you've built in Ninox, white was used as a default color, they may conclude that roofer was the default because out of the 4, it is the one that appears in white. I might not want that to be the situation, so maybe I'll put this in a slightly lighter background. This will flip the font color to black, so again we have a standard interface. And we're going to go ahead and click OK to save these changes. Let's now select the type of company, the second choice field that we created, and let's bring up our choice options. This choice field has been set up as a radio button presentation. Let's add the values for the choices S, corporation. You can optionally give it an icon or a color. I'm not going to here. Our next choice might be a C, corporation. And the final and third choice would be a partnership. And let's select OK to save those choices. Finally, we have the company current status. This is going to be a switch, and the choices are going to be pending, again, icon and color optional, active, suspended, and closed. And finally, and again, click OK. Let's save these changes to the model and look at what we have done on the screen. Now, we have first the type of service field. This is a combo box, and it's a combination box because it contains 2 elements. The white section is the field that displays our choice, while the blue downward pointing arrow is the icon that allows us to expose our choices. Let's say that this is a plumber. We will select the radio button next to plumber, and that will fill in the selection portion of the combination field. We then see the type of company option. These are radio buttons, and again, we can select any one of them, but only one of them. This will be a little bit different in a moment when we look at our multiple choice. And then finally, we have the switch. Like the radio buttons, the switch presents us all of our choices and allows us to select one and only one. The type of company, radio button option, and the current status or switch option, again, are kind of opposites. The selection options in the radio button configuration are presented in a stacked or vertical manner, while the switch presents all of our options in a horizontal manner. The radio buttons and the switch present all of the options, the one we've picked and the remaining ones that we did not, where the combo box shows us by default only the choice we made. We have to click on the downward pointing arrow to actually see the choices we did not pick. Let's look at just a few more things real quickly before we move on to multiple choice. Let's select the type of service field and go into maintenance by selecting the wrench. Let us say that I want plumber to be the first option. It's not the first choice we created, that was electrician, but I want electrician to actually be at the bottom of the list. Grab the hamburger icon that appears to the right of the item number and use that by clicking and holding to drag the choice to the appropriate position. In this case, I want plumber to be on top, electrician to be on the bottom, and roofer and landscape service to change positions. And while I'm at it, I don't like any of these colors, so I'm going to select each choice one at a time, select the color, go to the palette, and select somewhat less bold choices. And you should go ahead, if you're following along, and do the same in your system. Now, it doesn't matter which colors you choose, but keep in mind that very bright, very bold colors tend to be a distraction. Only use them when you intentionally want to draw the user's attention directly to that field. Bright reds, bright yellows, bright oranges, these draw the attention of the user. These lighter, or what we call softer fields, allow the system to flow with the natural movement of the human eye, which is left to right, top to bottom. So again, we like to use, and we recommend in the spirit of best practices, softer, lighter colors. Now, if you, again, want to draw attention to a specific choice, which we're going to see in a moment, you can do that using colors that stand out. Let's explore that option by going into maintenance mode on the company current status field. Let's have the pending color be a light gray, active be, I don't know, that cream color, suspended, we can make that one kind of a faded red, and closed, we can make this one a very bold red. Now, a couple of things have happened here. First of all, the background color, being very bold, draws our attention to that color. And because it's a darker color, it has flipped the color of the font. Of the four choices, only one appears in white, a light font on the darker, bolder background. Don't simply use color to make it pretty. Obviously, we want our user interface to be attractive, but more importantly, we want it to be intuitive, and we want it to be clear in what it's expecting the user to do. If we simply are throwing out colors, that can A, be a distraction, or B, imply there's some meaning to those colors, but in fact there's no meaning at all. This can confuse our user. So be very careful in how you select your colors. In the case of a switch, and let's go ahead and select OK, in the case of a switch, when we have those colors assigned, those colors will be reflected in our selection, just as they are in the combo box. We assign colors to each option, and whichever option we choose served as the color displayed in the selection part of the combo. Similarly, in the switch, the color we choose, the option we choose, has the appropriate background color associated with it. But again, in this sense, the switch and the combo box are opposites of each other. While they both can show us all of the options, only the combo box shows us all of the colors of all of the options at the same time. The switch shows us all the options, but not all of the colors associated with the option. One more interesting thing about the switch, if you choose to add icons, and I will very quickly do that, selecting the full circle the 3/4, the half, and the null or full open. All of the icon choices will appear in a switch. Keep in mind, however, switches are horizontal in nature, and of the three options, the combo box, the radio buttons, or the switch tends to take up the most space. Note that the radio buttons are presented in a vertical fashion, which means I can skinny them up. This creates additional room to expand the width horizontally of my switch. I have the same option to skinny up or spread out my combo box. So those are the three choices for presenting the choice field. Let's save our changes. Let's select the actions gear at the top and edit the fields to return once more to this field. To return once more to the table management window, where we're going to select the multiple choice option. The multiple choice option is identical to the choice option field we just worked with. It can be presented as a combo box, a set of radio buttons presented in a stack vertically, or a switch presented horizontally across the screen. We can add values, for example, value 1, and again have the option to associate icons and colors. Value 2, value 3, and you guessed it, value 4. The difference between the multiple choice and the choice field is given away by the name. Let's accept those choice definitions by clicking OK. Let's save the changes, and we now immediately return to the form where we see our multiple choice field on the second row. Go into administrative mode, grab the official red Ninox wrench, select a choice field, spread it out so it is maximum width on your screen, and deselect the field by clicking anywhere in the gray area. Now, because it is a multiple choice field, and because we have selected the switch, we can see all of our choices, and in fact choose more than one. Each one being its own toggle switch, on, off, on, off. But we can have more than one be on or selected at a time. Select the multiple choice field, click on the wrench, change it to a radio button, and again click OK. Now, grab the sizing box on the right, and because this is made in vertical presentation, let's pull that back so as not to waste a lot of screen space. And again, you can see that not only are all of the options presented, but all or some can be selected. Because the multiple choice allows for multiple selections, and let's go look at it real quickly, in the radio button option, it is actually presented as a checkbox, similar to the one we saw in the yes/no. So think of this one question as really 4 questions. Question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, and question number 4. And we have the option to answer yes or no to each of those questions. If it looks like this, the answers to questions 1 and 2 are no. The answer to the questions 3 and 4 are yes. Compare this to the radio button option for the choice field, where the blue dot indicates where the yes is, but because we can only choose one option, by default, all the other choices would be no. No, this is not an S Corp. No, this is not a C Corp. yes, it is a partnership. Let's once more select the multiple choice field, go into the options, and let's make it a combo box. What do we know about combo boxes? They are a combination of two elements: the choices we have made and the option to display all of the choices that we had available. Again, select your multiple choice field, grab the sizing box on the right, and stretch it out. Now, click the downward pointing arrow in the blue box on the right edge of the field. Here we see all of our options, again presented as radio buttons, but when we select one, the option list does not simply disappear. Compare that behavior to the type of service combo box. Click the blue button to drop down the window to show us our options and select one. The minute you make your selection, the box closes. However, when we expand the combo box of a multiple choice field, making a choice does not close the box. It merely indicates our selection for that particular line item. And we have some shortcuts. We can select all or none with all of the choices, and in this case we'll say value 1 is a yes, value 2 is a no, values 3 and 4 are both yeses. Click anywhere outside the drop-down box to close it, and we will now see all of our choices presented in the selection portion of the multiple choice combo box. If you are giving the user a lot of options, say more than 6 or 7, in a multiple choice field, make sure you have given the element or the object itself enough room horizontally so that all the options can be displayed. For example, if I only make this multiple choice field that wide and I select all, I can see there's something to the right of my third choice, but I can't see specifically what it is. Like the switch, a combo box in a multiple choice field where there are a lot of choices is going to take up a lot of room horizontally across the screen. Go into edit mode, change it to a radio button. We now have the opposite. We have all of our choices displayed. It does not take up much room at all horizontally, but it does create a stack vertically that takes up a number of rows from left to right across our screen. There is no right or wrong answer to what's the best way to display a choice or multiple choice field or a yes/no field. The answer is what is intuitive to your user. Do they need to see all options and the one they chose? Or do they only need to see the choice they made? In this case, all of the options are here, but only the choice we made is available. Compare that to the multi-choice radio button option, the single choice radio button option, and the switch, where all of the choices remain visible even after we have selected the one or many that the user wishes to choose. Let's look at a few more things in our choice fields, and these are consistent across all of the choice fields. Go ahead and select any one of your choice fields. I'm going to select type of service, click the wrench to go into maintenance mode, and you have the options that we have seen in many other fields. We can assign hover help or a tooltip that guides the user, gives them additional information as to how to interact with this field. We can use a formula that is evaluated to yes or no, true or false, to determine whether or not, to determine whether or not this field should display on the form or not display, to remain invisible. We have a trigger option. We can make something happen through a formula, through the Ninox code, After we have interacted with this field, we're going to explore that more in the 300 level series in the class Programming with Ninox. And again, we can use code to determine yes or no, is this field writable? Can people change the value of the field? We may only want certain users to be able to change the field, to have the field presented as a writable field, while other users, it's read-only. Again, this is done through formulas, this is done through coding, and explained in much greater detail in the 300 level class, Coding and Programming in Ninox. And finally, we have what kind of field? That's right, a yes-no field, where we can toggle on or off, yes or no. Is this field going to be targeted by the Ninox search engine whenever the user executes a find or goes into find mode by clicking on the magnifying glass, either in the sidebar or at the top of the screen if you're in full screen mode? If the box is checked, the answer is yes. Search this field, target this field as part of the find process or search engine. Unclick it, the answer is no, and this now will be invisible to the Ninox search engine. Click OK to close the window. And those are our choice fields. Lots of different options in terms of what kind of field we want to use, and lots of options on how each field is going to be displayed. Now, in our next video, we're going to be talking about some special fields that we can use as objects within our table data models. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you in the next class. Have fun with Ninox. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.